there's such a difference, right, between being drawn to something and being told to do it and following it and fighting willpower. You can change what you're drawn to. That's the more important process than being given a list of foods you should eat and shouldn't eat. First thing I'm going to work with you on is mindful eating, slowing down, consciously connecting and thinking about where the foods come from. And like you said, using food as an opportunity to connect with the people around you. Your relationships will also improve. But you will find over time that you start to feel drawn to foods that actually nourish your body because you start to also get more body awareness.
Sarah is the founder of copper+cloves, which is a health and wellness website primarily focused on vegan and healthy recipes and also leading a healthy lifestyle too. She's also the founder of the copper+cloves cafe based here in Bangalore, in Indranagar to be precise. If this is the second time you're listening to this, that's because this is part 2 of my conversation with Sarah. Part 1 released a while ago, so if you haven't checked out part 1 yet, I would highly recommend checking it out. I'll leave a link to it in the description for you to go check out right now. Actually, now's a good time to go check it out before you proceed with this one, because who knows what we've spoken about in the first part. And you know how FOMO works, right? What if you go into this episode and you don't know what we spoke about in the first part? Okay, might make it sound like it's a little too extreme. It really matters or doesn't matter. It's really up to you. Maybe you want to listen to part 2 and then go back and check out part 1. Be my guest. But yeah, you want to do it in chronological order, go check out part 1 first and then check out part 2. Well, in this episode, we go into the education system and how it needs to be revamped from the ground up. We have so many issues, I personally believe, with the education system, and Sarah too felt the same. And we go into a whole lot of details when it comes to what we can do when it comes to education, how we can really change things up. So yeah, we also talk about how experimenting in life can go a long way. And also the importance of nutrition. This is such an important topic. I didn't have anyone on the show before this who was an expert in nutrition or health and wellness per se. So I'm glad that we finally got Sarah here to talk a whole lot about that. There's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of people doing, I don't know, easy, quick hacks trying to get fit and healthy while actually it's not healthy at all. So yeah, I'm glad that, we talk a lot about nutrition and wellness a little towards the end of the episode. By the way, this show's audio is brought to you by Sennheiser. I'll talk more about my partnership with Sennheiser a little later on the episode. Without further ado, this is part 2 of my conversation with Sarah from copper+cloves. This is Against the Odds, and I'm your host, Akash Damodaran. This show is all about inspiring people to take the unconventional path and lead a life that is truly fulfilling and rewarding. Watch and listen as talented individuals take us through their learnings, the challenges they face, and how they continuously adapt to overcome them. I think I went off on a tangent earlier, but that the whole, helping, I was talking to my wife, have long conversations about how I want to help people, right? And my biggest aim, right? I think like the overarching, like what I need to do by maybe 30, 40 years down the line is somehow revolutionize the education system, which I know will take a couple of decades. Especially in a place and environment like India, right? I'm talking really like having a year dedicated to just discovering yourself, figuring things out.
That's amazing,
right? Because a lot of cultures have that already. Like Australians take a gap year, right? They take a year off. A lot of places around the world also they do the same thing.
Even I was encouraged to do that after uni. I was encouraged to take a gap year. It changed my life. I would be doing something completely different if I hadn't have done that.
Absolutely.
And I completely agree. I think it's crazy to hear you talking and just thinking so outside of the box. Like, take a year to discover yourself. Like, why are we teaching these same subjects still? It doesn't actually...
I don't use anything I've learned there.
I know.
For sure. Like, in terms of technical stuff, like off the book, I have nothing. I don't think I'm using any of that right now.
And it's just so... it just hasn't evolved with the world around, that they've tried to bring it up by, adding subjects, but not completely
revamped it.
Like you're saying, like, think about it completely differently. Like, don't think about it as, okay, we need to update that textbook to include more about, climate change, or we need to introduce the subject of IT. But actually think, like, should we even be sitting in a classroom? Should we even be teaching maths beyond this point? Should we be teaching taxes? Should we be teaching, like...
You should be teaching, like,
it's
your
so
personal
crazy
tax,
how much
personal
you should
finance.
Be teaching taxes
my God,
and personal finance. It is...
Oh my God. I really, not just me, everyone needs that.
Everyone needs that. And the fact that personal finance, that well-being, that, emotions, like learning about self-awareness, about your emotions, because that is actually what you need, that is the difference between often your life going well or unfortunately taking a turn. Because if you can't have self-awareness and be able to handle your emotions, feel them, and then move through them, you may numb them. You may get into a serious addiction or a socially acceptable addiction. But either way, it's going to hold you back and hinder you from like living your full potential. Whereas being able to regulate your emotions and not be afraid of them is like, how are we not teaching? I don't know. I'm sure there are lots of progressive schools around the world that are teaching them, but I'm pretty sure that most aren't.
Yeah, I mean, to think of what's become mandatory versus like these things should be mandatory.
They should be.
But instead, what we have put through, like the grind is, and again, I think about this a lot, and very, again, extremely philosophical nature. You're thinking about all of these things that maybe even if you tried all your life might not change. We don't know, right? But I'm thinking like you're 18 years old or 17 when you sign up for, what you want to do. And pretty much about 80 to 90% of them follow through till, the end of their career, which is so sad, right? But if you're able to give them some sort of guidance and figure out maybe in that first 1 or 2 years, like this is what this person is drawn towards, and then kind of really focus and hone in on that. Oh my God, it's not 2 years lost. It's 2 years. It's numerous years gained.
Exactly.
Oh my God. I have another, again, because we're talking about ideas. And I'm the kind of guy who does exactly the opposite of what people, normally say, right? So for instance, they say, you have an idea. Oh my God, keep a little hush hush. And,
put it out there.
Yeah, you should put it out there. You should talk about it.
Yeah, you
because
should.
I've told you this. You never know where this might go.
Yeah.
Right?
And now I'll think of you. Like if something ever comes up, I'm like, oh, maybe I could connect you to this person. Like that's why I completely agree with you. And I think the advice that like, if you have an idea, that you should just keep it to yourself because you don't want to seem silly that you're like telling people when you have no idea how you're going to do it. It's so untrue, because this whole idea of manifesting your dreams, manifesting your ideas, it's not magic. Okay. You don't say it, think it, and then it happens. You say it, you think it, you prime your brain to look for opportunities that you may otherwise miss. And you also, by telling people, you're putting it out there in such a way that, like you said, you've told me that. Now, you don't know. Like, I may know someone who's looking to start a school completely and need someone to help them develop the curriculum. And I'm like, I'm going to connect you to. And then, you never know. I don't. I'm really sorry. I actually don't know that person. Now I feel like I'm like... No. I don't know that person.
A lot of people are going to be commenting like, Sarah's supposed to help Akash here.
But I may well meet that person, even if it's in 3 years from now, and I'll remember our conversation and I might, join the dots. Put them out there. Tell me, what is your other idea?
No, so the concept is to, and again, this is what I noticed, most people follow, right? And I'm taking engineering because that's what I've been through, but it's the same thing for anything, right? So you pick up engineering or your degree, 3-4 years, you go through the grind and they teach you all of these subjects, which you barely even end up using.
Yeah.
It's more about just showing you that, hey, this is what you're paid for. So there you go, take a couple of textbooks and jam it into your head, right? That's basically what it is, right? And then towards the and again, this is an Indian thing, right? The last year is all about placements. It's about getting a job, right? So I remember when all of us, my eventual batchmates, we're all looking for colleges and universities, the obvious question was, okay, so what's the placements like in this place? What are the options? How many people have not gotten placed from the previous batches and whatnot, right? So those are the kind of conversations that happen towards the tail end of your course.
Yeah.
So the last year is all about, they'll bring in, what's it called? Not just a personality development person, but just someone who's going to career guide you, right? A career guidance counselor, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like a boot camp of sorts where they go through like 3 to 4 to 5 sessions, and apparently now you're equipped. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
There are people in class who have never opened their mouths.
Yeah.
They have no idea how to, even sit on the other side and interview.
Yeah.
Right?
And they don't have that the conversational skills.
Yeah.
Learning about emotional IQ, what they call EQ, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they're not teaching that.
Yeah. They expect you to pick it up literally over 4 sessions or 5 sessions.
Yeah.
Some colleges don't even offer that.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't come down to that, right? It comes down to what you've been building the last 10 years or your entire life for that matter, the kind of person you are. It's more about what you're doing at home than what you're doing here.
Yeah.
Right? So just because you go through these, they'll give you a certain couple of hacks maybe, but it's just a hack.
Yeah.
It's not a revolutionary method.
Yeah.
So, and then again, I realized that it's not just the bookworms or not just the geeks or not just the nerds who get a job. It's someone who can really communicate their thought across and have a fair idea of the subject. I was one of those people, I felt, at least on the latter side, where I was never, the topper. I didn't give a shit about having to, mug up the book and, just vomit it onto paper. I was just the kind of guy who, okay, I know this is what I need to know. Maybe I can make do with this.
Yeah.
And I will do whatever it takes to sell it. That's the kind of, a little bit on the street smart kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And that's how I cracked the interview.
Yeah.
I remember the first company that came was, Deloitte.
Yeah.
And there was about 30 of us that got in. And I noticed when I looked at the people who got in, I'd say about 90 to 95% of them, none of them were
The
really,
toppers.
they were
it's
not the
actually
toppers.
the affable, because
Exactly.
obviously you have a lot of charisma, and that's actually so much more important.
It's that social skill, right? It's whether you can even, just stand up and start talking to 20 people.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, that I think that whole program itself is strange, and not just that, people are just looking at getting a job because they have to get a job. And I still hear my parents, my grandparents, a lot of my family members still talk about this. Oh, he's almost done with his course. He doesn't have a job. So, it's such a waste.
It's such a pressure.
It's big
such a
pressure.
pressure
Oh my God, it is.
Yeah.
And I remember at one point they came back and said, we're not taking 30, we're taking 25 people. So 5 of you might not even get your job, which has been promised to you. And I'm like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
And then the next couple of 3-4 months was just torture for all of us. We're like, what the hell, dude?
Oh my God.
What are you saying?
That's so stressful.
Yeah, it is. It was really stressful. I had tears in my eyes when I was talking to the counselor, and it was really weird. Well, but still, I'm thinking there has to be a much better approach to all of this, right? And also what I've noticed is if you decide to take up the job, chances are you'll continue through with the job. And that's and even though whether you like it or not is not the point.
Whether it's ever been your dream.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. So my concept, and what I've realized after, studying numerous companies, is to basically have, let's say if it's a 4-year course, you have 3 years of, again, not even 3 years, I'd say about 2 years across the span of 4 years of technical know-hows, you learn the subjects the way you would, if it's even required. But the other 2 years is more about really 2 things. One is improving your, these skills that I spoke about, how you can present yourself, how can you convey certain thoughts across.
Yeah.
Because you can be the smartest person in the room, but if you can't put the thought across, it's as good as not even having the idea in the first place. Right? So that's one aspect. And the second bit was figuring out that purpose or your passion, which is a very tough thing to do. This whole follow your purpose or passion is a very misleading thing of sorts, because you can't. What is our passion? What is the purpose? You don't even
know. Yeah, exactly. It's taken a long time of going in a direction to, and you can have lots of purposes also.
Absolutely.
But it's about tapping into them.
Yeah.
Actually, I guess what you're saying is finding them is the thing that people need support with.
Absolutely. Like those 120 questions you said, right? That's everyone wants a quick fix. Everyone's looking for quick solutions now.
Yeah,
right?
things that are replicable and this thing, but actually it's not. It's messy. It might really involve like kind of
all of it, like literally.
It's very human to human also. Like I remember that thing, it was like you had to fill it in and then they scanned it and it spat it out. Like it's an algorithm, like you said.
Yeah. Oh my God. And it's so I'm thinking like in the first year you decide to become a photographer.
Yeah.
So then the next 3 years is about, or not even the next 3 years, the next 6 months is about seeing whether you even like it. Try things out.
Yeah.
Practically do stuff. If it doesn't work out, it's fine.
No shame. Yeah.
Move on to the next thing.
Here's some
Try that.
Yeah.
And then maybe by the end of it, you might or might not have figured it out. You can even get an extension to the course. But at the end of the day, you come out knowing whether this is what you want to do.
Yeah.
And that is revolutionizing it from the top, from bottom to top.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not easy to do.
Yeah.
I get that. And especially because of how bureaucratic and political things can get. I get that.
It is really hard. It will be a hard sell, but I do think increasingly people are going to understand how important something like this is. And I think the other thing that would be really good for that is that maybe that, you may come out of it still not knowing what you want to do, but you've explored avenues. But the key thing is you've also learned a lot about yourself, about how to connect with people, about how to, about self-reflection and self-actualization. So, and those are the actual important things that then, even if you've done all these different things and you decide I want to do something else, that those things will help you to get that job that you've decided you want.
Absolutely.
So it's like, to me, there's so much in education. There's so little and there's so much space for more stuff that helps you to know yourself. And it's about learning. It's about self-awareness. It's about becoming aware of your emotions and the impact of you, having more body awareness, having more awareness about connection and how you connect with people. All of those things are like the soft skills that we're never taught. Like I swear, like ever. And it's really, really difficult, I think, to teach them. But what you're describing would inherently build those things in, because you're constantly asking people like, are you enjoying this? Really?
Yeah.
You're asking people, you're giving them so much agency that they have to begin to know themselves.
Correct.
Which normally most education institutes, whether it's kindergarten to your master's or PhD, they literally aren't encouraging you to know yourself. They're encouraging you to follow the script.
Yeah. And that's the thing, that the script's built by someone else.
And it was built a really long time ago. A really long time ago.
Post-industrial era,
Yeah, and it hasn't really fundamentally changed. But look at our lives and how much they've changed. So it's actually crazy when you think about it.
Oh my God, dude, the whole 40-hour work week created 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's still following it.
Yeah, it's
and
crazy.
so that's why companies are coming out today with a four-day work week.
Yeah, they're really trialing that now. It's very exciting.
It is. It really is.
Because that would be the single biggest kind of change to structure that we've seen in our lifetime, I feel.
Yeah, everyone's moved away from working in an office space, and now they're working at home.
Work from home.
So all of these things together, these things should change too.
Yeah, right? Exactly. I think it's really interesting. I don't know whether you remember this, but just speaking about education, like I remember at school, like when we were studying the Second World War, we were studying about in the UK, like about how it impacted day-to-day life. So of course we learned about the Second World War itself and all the awful things, but also about the social change. So, for example, women in the workplace, everyone can look back and say, okay, the Second World War was the single biggest fast forward to something that was anyway happening, because women had to go into the workplace, and then they were like, well, we're not going to just leave because the war's over. And because of the manpower crisis, it fundamentally, and I remember learning that, and, in history, source this, and, you had to like analyze different history texts and stuff. And I think it will be really interesting how people will analyze what's happened with, the pandemic over the last few years, the things that will fundamentally change about the way we work and interact. And I can imagine a kid in 20 years' time saying like, oh, the global pandemic, obviously there were awful things and it was caused by this, and these were some of the terrible things that happened, but also these are some of the social changes which came about as a result of it. And so much of it, or about the flexibility of the workplace and changing the way that people work.
Yeah.
But the education system, I don't know whether, because just putting the same old classes online is not a change. That's not a change. That is just making things worse, actually, because you're taking away the connection and the camaraderie of school. And just
that's the main reason you go to school, right?
Yeah, because that's the best part about school. The didactic teaching about old-fashioned things that we've all agreed are half of them irrelevant these days is the worst part about school. And all that's going to happen is, it seems like to me, and my friends with children have observed, that it's just the same stuff just being taught via Zoom, and the parents are doing more of the work rather than the teachers, and the kids aren't losing all sense of connection and camaraderie. And somehow something has to change about that as well. Like,
oh my God, dude.
Because
I think about this a lot, and I'm thinking about how right now we can't say, but 20 years down the line, you'll see these changes because the kids would have grown up by then. You can't see it now.
Yeah.
And you have no idea what are the social repercussions.
Yeah.
Because a kid's still going to be a kid for the next 5 years.
But that loss of interaction and somehow the education system needs to be focusing on that. Yeah. Not on the lost time where they're not learning about a parallelogram. Yeah. Which frankly, why do we need to learn about that? But they need to be focusing on how can we get kids to learn from each other and from connection and from relationships, because that's actually the most applicable part of your education in school to the real world, is everything you learn through connection and relationships. And all those little playground dynamics and everything are like huge learnings which actually apply. Not parallelograms.
That's what the title of this episode is going to be. Not parallelograms.
Not parallelograms.
Don't be a parallelogram.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, man. So I was listening to this somewhere recently where this expert was talking about what is going to be revolutionized in the coming 50 years or so, or maybe even 100 years. And you actually touched upon it. You said people are now... end up living longer than 100 years. Yeah. Right? So two areas this person spoke about, and this is an expert, and it's come from, years of study and research and all that. He said one is going to be healthcare, because right now you go to a doctor because, well, he's a doctor, she's a doctor, right? They have the degree and that's it. Apparently studies and research has shown that about 70% of the medicines that are being prescribed don't even have the intended effect. Yeah. So it's just being prescribed because that's the,
that's what they learn.
Yeah, and it's the kind of carbon copy approach, right? And there are a lot of doctors these days that do Google all of these things. And again, you should, because there's no shame in doing that, because you're trying to stay ahead of the curve and all of that.
You've got to update yourself, you're learning.
So eventually healthcare is going to hit a point where it's going to be super personalized. It's going to be, and this is where tech and AI is going to come in and kill things, right? It's going to be for you. Yeah. Right now, healthcare is a one size fits all sort of model. And the other one is education. Because right now as well, everything is again a one size fits all. This is what's there. You pay for it and just take it or leave it. That's it. Yeah. And if you don't, and again, how many models do we have? We have 3 models in the entire of India. You can only follow these 2-3 approaches and that's it.
And they're not that different fundamentally.
Yeah.
People act like they're like, oh, it's this or this, but ultimately they're pretty similar.
It's ultimately how much you pay for it. It's what it is. It's because obviously there's a social stigma attached to this whole thing. So it's the kind of people that are going to come to certain schools. Yeah. So it's also that. I get that. Yeah. But what's going to be revolutionized, and I think, so he said that, what would you say is the right way to check if you're smart or not, if you're wise rather, right? The way you can say someone's wise is through experience. You go through certain instances or experience, and then by the end of it, you can say this person's wise, right? AI can do that by running, certain combinations of things and then figure out, okay, this is what it takes, right? So they're saying AI is going to come in and revolutionize education is what they're saying, right? And that's where
personalize it, I guess.
But exactly. Yeah. It's very subjective. So you have to have it given specifically curated for this person. Yeah. So I think that, and I'm hoping that really, really changes things top to bottom. Like I really hope it does. But then again, it all comes back to what I said, right? You need to give someone time to see whether they want to either be an engineer or a YouTuber. because these are two very different things. I mean, there's nothing wrong in trying to be a YouTuber the first 6 months. If you can come, and again, the creators and anyone in the art field, the ones who transcend and kill it are ones who also know the business aspects of it and how do you scale this.
Yeah.
The other guys are very creative and smart. Well, you're there. You're doing your stuff. You're great, but you don't know how to make money out of this. You don't know how to make this a business, right? And I think that's where I think this whole trying things out. You have 4 years, keep trying. And also another addition to this idea was, instead of why would parents believe you? Like, why would they want to send kids here? Well, it's because we would want to partner with companies that are doing this and get them to work with them directly while you're in college.
Have their buy-in so that they...
I mean, think about it, right? Interns usually convert outside India, at least, even in India for that matter. If you're an intern at a company, chances of it converting to full-time role is very high. Right? So if you interned with a company for 6 months, chances are you can get a full-time job there.
Yeah.
So then you can intern with a company and then see that. And again, you'll have to take, it's very nuanced. Of course, it's not like, hey, kid, you're 18, go work here through this educational institute. It's not going to work that way. But then imagine if we brought in, let's say Deloitte, someone wants to be a consultant. We bring Deloitte in, they work with Deloitte for 6 months through us. And then they see, okay, whether this is for you or not. They get some work done for free. It could be a free internship or whatever. And in turn, the kid gets to learn whether he or she fits that or not. Yeah. And then you try that again and again. And that's what I'm thinking.
And I think that's a really good... I mean, in terms for businesses as well, like, Deloitte, as we keep talking about, obviously...
It's like almost like this show sponsored by
Deloitte. But, not to disparage anybody who... And I have a friend, who joined Deloitte 10 years ago, and he's just gone through the ranks and he loves it, and that's great, and it's not in any way disparaging of someone that wants
There's a good chance both of us could go back to Deloitte. Who knows?
Because Deloitte also, but the good thing about is any big company like that is it's so broad. The scope of work is so broad. I mean, you can be consulting for a local government or for the government of a whole country, or you could be consulting for a business, or you could be doing internal work. And so there's actually a lot of, and so if they can also, but again, with Deloitte, just like the same problem with all the education institutions is you sort of have to pick one, at least for the first 2 years, as far as I understand, when you go through the graduate scheme. And then you get rotations within that, but it's still within a scope. Correct. Whereas actually, if everyone can just be a bit more broad and open-minded and say, like your idea with an education institution where you don't put your stake in the ground at the beginning and say, this is what I'm going to do the whole way through, but you get the opportunity to try things. And if even organizations could be a bit like that, a bit more open to like, hold on, you're really good at this bit.
Yeah.
And actually you'd be better off, in this role.
Yeah.
Or even, we can place you in, we know that this organization that we were consulting for, we have a good relationship with them, but we can place you in other organizations. There's just a bit more fluidity.
Yeah.
I think fluidity is the key thing that's needed. It's
that
so
sounds
rigid right now.
And that sounds like proper counseling. That's how counseling should be.
Like, let's think outside the box. Let's work out what, and it doesn't have to be something that you're amazing at. It has to be something that lights you up, because that's the thing that you're also going to be able to see through, and that you're going to be able to work in,
Yeah. And again, no one looks at it that way, right? And that's the sad part of the story. I mean, no one is...
It's a big change. It's a big task.
That's what I said. It's like the more you think about it, the more you're like, wow, okay, this sounds great, but man... It has so many moving parts, and it's just a big, it's literally the Everest of the education system. Oh, man.
Well, I wish you all, all the goodwill in the world to make that dream a reality, because I think it's definitely the right direction.
Taking a small, quick, short break from our conversation to talk about our partnership and collaboration with Sennheiser. Damn, I can't believe that we were able to make this collaboration happen. It's just a dream come true, to be very honest. But now there's a way that I want to help you guys out in your content creation journey too, because Sennheiser is kind enough to send me a whole lot of equipment that we use here at Against the Odds. And so if you are actually on the lookout for the right kind of equipment to take your game, your content creation game to the next level, or you don't know what is the right pieces of equipment to invest in, then you can actually just reach out to me directly on Instagram or on email. And again, I'm getting a lot of these on Instagram already, so I thought might as well have segments of this on our show to let people know, what are the equipment pieces that we use right now, so that maybe they can also explore it and make a choice. And today I'd like to talk about this wonderful piece of equipment. That's the best way to describe it. It's called HD400. These are open back headphones by Sennheiser. And if you might have seen some of the previous or listened to some of our previous episodes, I might have spoken about some of these closed back headphones, but this one is an open back, which means you can actually hear through the environment or the place you're sitting in as well, and gives you a far more natural sounding output. So it's perfect if you're planning to listen to music or audio or mix and edit for longer hours. Super comfortable. You can see that the ear pads are like super spongy and soft. And it's just superb in terms of quality. And another thing with open back is that if you are a solo content creator, so for instance, when I got started, and for the longest bit, I was recording, shooting, and doing everything on my own, right? So if I had something like passive or active noise cancellation headphones on, I can't really hear what's happening around. So if there is some sort of a noise or something, maybe the camera just switched off, I won't be able to tell. But something like this is perfect if you want to just put it on while you have your conversation. You might have seen maybe veterans like Joe Rogan and a whole lot of people wearing headphones while they are recording or shooting their podcasts. And I would recommend keeping one of these open back headphones on, because it gives you a fair idea of what's happening around you, while also being able to very clearly hear what you and the guest or the guests are talking about. So I would highly recommend checking out the HD400s if you are looking for one of the best open back headphones in the market right now. Highly recommend it. I will leave a link to the HD400s as well as pretty much all the equipment that we use here at Against the Odds down in the description below for you to go check out. And like I said, if you have any questions or any queries, don't hesitate to reach out. Cheers. Now we go back to the conversation. I have one last thing I want to talk to you about, because I know we went off on a couple of tangents, but that's great. I think that's where the nuggets lie.
Me too. I love tangents.
Yeah, and most of our conversations on the show has been, those parts which went off on tangents are where, all of this lies. But one thing again that I think just generally people don't think too much about is nutrition, right?
Yeah.
And like, for instance, if and especially when teenagers grow up, the first thing they try to do is get a gym membership. They look at fitness, which are things you can do outside. It could be and every other thing except nutrition, which is probably the last in the list, is what they first dedicate a lot of effort towards, right? And then is when nutrition finally comes into play. Which actually, if you think about it, it's upside down.
Yeah, it is.
You should think about and I think no one better, and again, we've never had someone in the nutrition space, so you're like perfect for this.
So where I actually think things go wrong is also the amount of misinformation out there. And ultimately, it's in India and in the UK where I grew up. I can only comment on what I know, but ultimately a complete diet culture situation. So that's really what I want to fight against. So I think sometimes people don't think about nutrition till last, but sometimes they do think about it first. But their first interaction with nutrition is, I'm going to go keto. I'm going to go on a diet. A diet which has a name, which is a one size fits all, which it's just very, very similar. They look at things and increasingly in social media, it's even younger and younger. Although I didn't have social media, like I said, when I was at school, when I was a 13-year-old girl, we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have Facebook. I guess we had magazines, but something still led me towards, I need to change the way I look, I need to diet. And now it's even more prevalent and pervasive for teenagers that their first interaction with nutrition will often be someone selling them the idea that they can change their body shape to look like a person who genetically is 0.001% of the population could ever look like that. And they feel that, because they can look like that. If they follow a specific prescribed diet, at the moment it's keto, in the past it's been starve yourself with 0 calories, it's been paleo, it's been Atkins, it's been a number of different things, right? Ultimately, extremely restrictive approaches to nutrition, and it's not nutrition, it's dieting, often now under the guise of good nutrition, is just literally a recipe for getting locked into a cycle of binge restrict, of yo-yo dieting, of yo-yo weight. And it is a recipe for eroding your self-esteem. Because every time you can't stick to a diet, whether you're a 15-year-old girl or a 14-year-old man trying it for the first time, as soon as you can't stick to that diet, something is eroded in you. You are told, I failed. I failed to do this. I couldn't stick to it. And you lose something of yourself, as well as you severely damage your nutrition. As in you severely damage your digestive system.
And your self-esteem.
And it's honestly something I really try and fight against. And in my mission, like I said at the beginning, is to get people to feel excited and inspired to eat well. And when I say eat well, I do not mean go on a calorie controlled or any other kind of counting numbers based diet.
Because we all like numbers.
We love numbers. We love numbers. We love having something to count, or, and even weight being counted, it's completely irrelevant. It's all about what if you have a very healthy set of habits, then, and that is you're living well, then how you look and your weight is irrelevant to that. We have to reach a point in society where we accept that if you live well, if you move regularly, you don't have to be shredded, you don't have to have hit a number on a scale or look a certain way. But if you move your body regularly in a way that feels good to you, if you have a good relationship with food, a positive relationship with food, you eat well, and you have also attention to the other things. You can manage your stress productively. You're in touch with your emotions, and you can get to sleep at 7 to 9 hours a night. It doesn't matter what you look like, and it doesn't matter what weight you are. That is my dream and it is a completely out there dream. People might say that, but ultimately we are still very much governed by, when people started to say it's so good that it's no longer about diets. Now for girls, it's about strong, not skinny. It's rubbish, because strong, not skinny is, again, still has an idealized body type, and it's still promoting a certain thing. So when you asked me about nutrition, when I'm talking about nutrition, I'm talking about focusing. I'm not saying eat anything, I'm talking about eating whole foods most of the time. There's a famous saying by Michael Pollan, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And I really that is my kind of, I personally am a plant-based chef, eater. I don't label myself I don't label my cafe as vegan, but it's fully plant-based, because I want to get people excited about whole food, plant-based eating, right?
And the label doesn't
matter. And the label, if anything, it can be a problem, because it can exclude people. It's a vegan cafe, why would I go there? Actually, 80% of our customers are, non-vegetarians.
Carnivores.
Yeah, not just not vegan, but non-vegetarians, because we that's the kind of vibe we're putting out there. It's fun, it's celebratory. You barely notice, right, that it's not because we're focused on what we're putting in it. We're not focused on what we take away. I could make a lot more money and have a lot more, charge a lot more if I could say like, okay, this dish is this many calories, these are your macros. So if you're on this diet, and I could sell my product that way, like my cafe and my meal subscription, I could sell it that way. And it would be a lot easier to sell than, these are whole foods, locally sourced. And we do have a focus on gut health, right? And trying to replenish your gut health through eating lots of fiber and lots of things. It's nowhere near as easy to sell as it's this amount of calories. So if you're on this diet, you could have this is your macros.
Hashtag keto,
hashtag
vegan.
keto. We would honestly, we could have blown up. But I really, really don't agree with diets. I don't think that they work. I know that from experience. I know that it's not just that they don't work, that they damage you, like I said. And they are a recipe for disordered eating and disordered self-esteem, as well as being bad for the body, literally. Right. And actually what we need to do is get back in touch with what are whole foods in their whole form and move away from processed foods, right? Not in a restrictive, because of the calories or because of this, but because ultimately, we have evolved to eat whole foods. And I know I'm speaking from a position of privilege, that almost goes without saying, not everybody has the opportunity to be able to cook or to be able to afford to eat in a way other than the way that they're just making do. But I am talking about people who have a choice. And in India, I'm talking about urban cosmopolitan India who do have a choice and yet are still stuck in a cycle where they feel guilty. They eat processed foods. They know that they shouldn't, but they feel like it's kind of, they're being marketed to us. And I feel that, moving people back to a place where they love eating whole foods. And I'm just going to keep saying whole foods. Whole foods meaning vegetables, fruits of all different colors, nuts, seeds, whole grains, not processed, and pulses, dals, and herbs and spices. So not and getting excited about putting them together in different ways. And I think that, again, it's not really taught in schools, really. It's in schools you learn about what is a carbohydrate or whatever, but
not really. Not even that.
Barely, yeah.
I had no idea that carbohydrates are the same thing as carbs.
Exactly.
I'm thinking from a technical standpoint.
Yeah, dismantle the basics basically, and to help people to just come up with, understand a healthy way to eat. That it doesn't, for me, healthy eating isn't, just having a green juice and all these kind of trendy foods. Sometimes I do.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But it's also just about and the good thing is in South India, there is a lot, real natural home food, like dals, a sabzi, some red rice. It's some of the healthiest and tastiest food in the whole world.
Yeah.
Actually.
Flavors. Yeah.
But unfortunately, people are moving away from that and buying more ready-made food, more packaged foods, and getting stuck in cycles where even, when they're eating, those processed foods, and then they're going on crash diets, and then they're getting stuck in a yo-yo up and down thing. So I really, really do want and feel that my mission is to get people to fall back in love with just eating well. I'm really confident that people's, you can actually change your palate. The more you eat natural whole foods, the more you get used to not eating highly processed foods full of hydrogenated fat.
It's a habit at the end of the day, right?
It's a habit, and literally your palate changes. So the actually then eating some home cooked meal will be more inviting, and you'll feel more drawn to it naturally than the processed packaged food that is high in salt, high in sugar, and high in fat that conditions your brain to want more and more of it, because that's an evolutionary hangover from periods of scarcity.
Yeah.
And so I feel that, that's basically my take on nutrition.
Yeah, so true. And the reason why I wanted you to talk about this is you basically hit the nail on the head. You said these are things that should be taught, right? It's the same as personal finance.
Exactly.
It's the same as, your tax. These
exactly.
are things, these are tools that's going to help you in your life. But we don't, like I said, I really didn't know carbs and carbohydrates.
Yeah,
like, I
exactly.
kid you not. Oh my God.
And I don't, and you're not the only one. And there's lots of misconceptions out there, and there's lots of sort of old wives' tales and all these like things which become, the rhetoric, and people don't understand about really what it means to eat healthily, to eat in a way that's also in harmony with the environment, and to eat in a way that's, one of the things I teach, which is something I would love to see being taught at schools. It's something I do try and work with parents to teach their kids, is about slow and mindful eating. It's one of the most powerful things that it's completely free. And it's one of the most powerful things that you can do for your nutrition and your health that doesn't actually require you to do like a big overhaul of your fridge and your, your shopping habits, but just start by eating slowly and mindfully. Like I call it mindful eating. Basically just means slow eating, slow down, chew your food. You have to chew your food way more than you think. Take a breath and a pause between each mouthful. Keep your hands on the table while you're chewing, rather than preparing the next bite so that it's ready to go even before you swallowed.
While you binge on Netflix.
Yeah, while you're watching something and you're looking at your phone. and actually slow down and aim to really slow down the amount of time you're eating by half. And what you'll notice is also then you have a much better relationship with your hunger and fullness cues, which are very powerful, which are, people are like, I've got no self-control. Nobody does. I mean, it's not something that people have or they haven't. Self-control comes from, your body can regulate itself, but we override the signals, and we become so habituated to ride the signals we don't even realize that they're there and that we can harness them. And so like teaching people to get back in touch with their hunger and fullness cues is such a powerful way to help people have a healthier relationship with food and to be able to trust their bodies. People feel so, what's the word? Like like they're fighting their bodies. They're like, oh, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I just crave it. And actually, we're one and the same. Like when we can tune into these cues, it becomes a lot easier to feel in control, and also to recognize it's completely fine to indulge.
You should,
when you want to. I mean, it's not just that you should. It will come naturally.
Exactly.
It's not about having a cheat day. Like, please don't get me started on cheat days, because I could talk for a whole podcast about the problems with cheat days. It's not that. It's about saying, like, when you feel like it, have it. But when you do that and you give yourself permission to indulge whenever you feel like it, actually, you'll find that you will self-regulate. You will have it when you feel like it, and it will take all of the like mental kind of pull and push about it, which we waste a lot of energy, worrying and thinking and worrying, oh God, I'm going to probably overeat at that time, or whatever.
Jotting down the calories.
And thinking about calories, and then feeling increasingly stressed. And it doesn't have to be that hard, actually. Be eating well and being healthy doesn't have to be that like grind. Doesn't have to be tough. It doesn't have to be a battle with yourself. Like, it can be
so much
easy. It can be easy.
Yeah. Oh my God. I've been doing a lot more of this. So my wife's left now. She's already in Canada, right? So we moved back in with my grandma last year. So we made a habit of sitting down together for lunch, right?
That's nice.
That itself. So earlier it was just, just sitting down in front of, like the laptop or the
TV.
TV.
And I'm working and
Yeah. So now sitting down with no tech and just having lunch
and connecting over food
and that's, I think, the best way to connect, right?
It is over food. I completely agree.
I mean, like, that's what food is for, I think, almost.
I completely agree. That's why I love creating food experiences for people, and ones that involve connection.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, right, some of these biggest events, anything from a wedding to whatever, right, to a housewarming, all of these things are based on how good the food is. Because if the food's not good, no one's going to remember the wedding.
Yeah.
Like everything else is great. I mean, you had a fun time, but the food, it's okay.
I completely agree. I can think back about all the different weddings I've been to, and I'm like, oh yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Do you remember how good the canapes were? Or that grazing table was insane. Like, so true.
Man. Yeah. So, and I've been doing a little bit, not enough, I think, but what you call mindful eating, like slowing down.
Yeah.
I haven't slowed down enough, but it's been more about knowing the kind of food you're eating.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. The more you slow down, the more you connect with the feeling of eating, how it feels in the mouth, chewing properly before you swallow, not distracting yourself, but actually connecting. The funny thing is, then you naturally start to care more about what you're eating.
Absolutely.
When you slow down and really consciously eat, and you're eating like a process, like something or from like a dodgy, like suddenly you're like, not really feeling this. And knowing where food comes from, connecting it to its source, about who's been involved in the journey. So mindful eating becomes like, yes, it's the physical slowing down and connecting to your hunger and fullness cues, stopping when you're satisfied, eating when you're hungry. But it is also about thinking like, actually, I'm pretty sure a lot of plastic has been involved in getting this food to my plate. And you start to think about, do I really want to be involved in that? You think about the supply chain.
Yeah.
You think about people that may have been harmed or exploited in the process. It actually...
It's almost meditative of sorts.
It is, and it's very connecting, and it makes you naturally, not because you've gone on a diet and because you're suddenly... but because you naturally suddenly feel drawn towards eating locally grown whole foods. And it just keeps coming back to that. Like if this is locally produced and I'm supporting the people around me and I know that this is grown locally, it's less likely to have been involved in plastic to transport it. And and it's been cooked with love in some way, prepared with love in some way. I really believe that can change the way you eat without it being a struggle. Because there's such a difference, right, between being drawn to something and being told to do it and following it and fighting willpower.
Yeah.
And so you can change what you're drawn to. That's the more important process than being given a list of foods you should eat and shouldn't eat. Right. I'm a health coach and everyone comes to me, they're like, okay, write me a meal plan. I'm like, I will not. The first thing
I will not.
I will not. Like the first thing I'm going to work with you on is mindful eating, slowing down, consciously connecting and thinking about where the foods come from. And like you said, using food as an opportunity to connect with the people around you, your relationships will also improve.
So true.
And if you take the time to like listen to your grandma while she's talking and not just look on your plate and shovel food into your mouth, you will naturally slow down. And if you're also talking, you will also not eat as fast. You'll find you'll get full, satisfied. You'll be able to pick up, actually, I'm done. And then you don't mindlessly eat. And then you're already overstuffed by the time you're like, oh, I think I've eaten too much, So when you slow down and your relationships improve, you connect, you have a more nourishing experience by the food and the connection.
Yeah.
And you find over time, I'm not saying it happens in one day, but you will find over time that you start to feel drawn to foods that actually nourish your body because you start to also get more body awareness. So you think, if you can eat something, it will be absolutely delicious and like satiating while you're eating it. But if you crash and feel, you just sometimes feel yucky after eating processed foods. And
not sometimes. Pretty much all
the time. And sometimes you've made it. I'm not saying I never, I love having a pizza, for example, because also now you can get vegan pizza. I love, I'm very partial to a packet of crisps. I'm not going to lie. But the more I connect with how I feel afterwards and just that feeling of like having to throw that plastic away and then thinking about how I feel afterwards, the taste that stays in your mouth, how it feels in your body. I'm not saying I never do it. Sometimes I actively choose to deal with that, but I feel less drawn towards it. And that's a lot easier than before when I was stuck in a cycle of yo-yo dieting for a good 10 years.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, it really, why I was drawn to this career was I really had a very, very bad relationship with food. And I healed that. And it took a lot of work. But it was really, really disordered and negative. And in my mind, it was like, you can't eat crisps, you'll get fat, and then they're bad foods. And then what did I find myself craving and secretly eating in my bedroom at night was like a whole packet of crisps, and I'd eat them and then I'd feel awful afterwards. And that is such a, when I say that, often people will look at me and they're like, oh my God, it's me with this.
Yeah.
A lot of people resonate with this, what I just said, that idea of like shamefully trying to avoid something all day and then secretly indulging in it and then feeling horrible afterwards. And the fact that that's prevalent is it's not right. It's not right. We shouldn't have that relationship. And now when I think about the ease with which I move through, oh, there's some crisps, like, oh yeah, these are really good. Actually, I'm done. Or whatever. Like, I'm not saying I never eat a packet of crisps, and I'm not saying I don't ever sometimes overeat or feel guilty after I eat, but just the ease with which I can move through the day around food compared to 10 years ago is so important, I think. Yeah. And that's another thing, as you said, should be addressed in our education, because we shouldn't have to struggle like this.
Like I said, it's a habit. Like you said, you're retraining your tannins. Is that what you want?
Palate,
right?
Your literally your taste buds, like your taste buds and sort of what feels good to you.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds, I don't want to sound super pious and like on my high horse, but we have a cafe, we serve really nourishing, satisfying like salads, right? That's a whole thing. It's not lettuce and tomato with a bit of dressing. They have chana, they have roast vegetables, they'll have nuts, they'll have all different things. And like, I crave them. It comes in front of me, I want to eat it. I really savor it. And that obviously makes it a lot easier to eat healthily. Rather than if I was like, oh, I should eat salads, I have to eat salads, or I just want to have crisps, but I can't have crisps, and that would be disgusting of me, I feel so bad. And that relationship then it's completely different.
Yeah.
So feeling drawn and looking forward towards eating something makes it a lot easier. So you need to retrain your palate like that.
Yeah. I think sustainability is the name of the game, right? Trying to like stick with it for like 10, 20, 30 years.
Your whole life. There's no point. I always say this to people who are on keto, like, can you see yourself eating like this in
20.
a year's time, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time? If the answer to any of those questions is no, why are you doing it now? It's not going to have a long-lasting effect. So if people have this real myth of before and after. But what happens after? Like, people are like, oh, I lost 20 kilos. Yeah. It's amazing. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it amazing? Or was that a really difficult year? And you feel amazing now, and then you can go back to normal, and you're going to feel worse about yourself, and you're going to have damaged yourself in the process.
Both physically and mentally. Yeah.
And actually, the much better thing to focus on is just gradually and slowly changing your habits by like slowing down your eating is the first thing. Mindful eating. You'll feel more drawn to healthy foods, and we could go on. Sleep and moving and stress management are also just as important, and so is community and connection. It's just as an important part of well-being as what you eat. But I guess that's a whole other podcast.
So Sarah, we should sit down and jot down the scope of what the syllabus can look like.
Seriously, we should write the syllabus.
And just like, hey,
I'll do the well-being part. I would be honored.
Oh man, no, but this is great, Sarah. I think I covered everything I had in mind and more.
Yeah,
so
it was really
awesome.
Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Really loved hearing about your visions and dreams and goals.
I think this is the most I've spoken about my, one of these ventures at least the most, which is crazy.
I'm so glad, and if I can help or be a part of it in any way, I'd love to be. And like I said, you've put it out there, and I'll take it forward. Like I'll remember this.
Yeah, absolutely. And who knows, our audience as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Listened to it, watched it. So you never know. Yeah.
And you never know where something is sparked or a conversation will happen in 2 years' time. So
yeah, absolutely. So I'll ask something of you which I ask of all my guests. The two things. One is, if you had to send people online, where do we send them to check your workout and all of that? So here you go. No high horse. This is your free plug.
Wow. That's such a good question, because I'm really battling with that. But Instagram is the best place right now, if you're listening to this in 2022, because it's the easiest for me. It's where I've built the biggest community. But I fully recognize and want to expand that. Eventually, I would love to say it's the copper+cloves app. That's where our community is the most active, that we speak to each other, that there's, content, that there's ways of connecting, that it's how you could touch in on events. So that's my vision for copper+cloves, is to have something like that. But right now it's definitely Instagram. That's where I'm the most active. And so it's copper+cloves. That's just all one word. And also, our cafe has a separate Instagram, which you can easily find through mine.
Awesome. And one last message for our audience. Anything that you didn't touch upon right now, or just one last closing thought? Not to put you on the spot, but
no, I have so many, and I think there's a couple of things that have come up in this conversation. Like, I guess one is, if you have a gut instinct, like we've both talked about this in slightly different ways. If you have a gut instinct about something you really enjoy, or something you feel you shouldn't do, just learn to trust that. I really think that one of the things that is missing from education and is missing from just daily talking is what is your gut instinct? What is your intuition telling you? Intuition is such a underrated or misunderstood part, and it's considered a bit woo-woo of intelligence. But intuition is absolutely a part of of our intelligence and of our self, right? And I think that just learning to trust it and listen to it and not dismiss it because you're rationalizing things and making pro-con lists and listening to whatever is the social prevailing norms of the time, but trust your intuition. That's one of my big messages that I feel, and awesome. I think it resonates with what we've talked about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah. This was awesome. Thank you
for having me. I'm honored to be on, and I really liked talking to you.
That's awesome. Next time I'll have you on again. I say this to all my guests. We'll have you on again when maybe I come back for a break from Canada, and we'll probably get a couple of our guests back and see where they've reached.
To
we'll talk then as well. We'll talk a lot about your content bit, and we'll talk a lot about
we haven't
other
really
things.
Talked about the Formco and the all
and
the
just
plans.
the fact that you started creating content on Instagram itself, that's another thing altogether. We'll definitely talk about all of this and more.
Cool.
But thank you so much, Sarah. This was awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the episode. That concludes part 2 of my conversation with Sarah. If you liked it and you stuck around till now, I'm assuming you liked it, hit that like button if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're listening to this on audio, then consider leaving a rating and review. It takes only about 10 to 15 seconds, but goes a long way in terms of showing your support to our show. If you'd like to be featured on the show, then send us your questions. Send us a short video talking about how the show's helped you, what's the impact the show's had on your life. And also, if you have a question for either me or my guest, then send us those questions and we'll have it answered on the show. Try to keep your videos less than 1 minute. Try to shoot it horizontally and send it across to contact@akashdamodaran.com and we'll feature you on the show. Huge shout out to Red Music Box. It's basically the location we shot and recorded this episode. If you are a content creator, you are an audio content creator or a musician who's looking at recording their pieces, then might I recommend coming down to Red Music Box and giving this place a try. It's probably the most professional setup I've seen in Bangalore. And you'll get all the assistance you need from someone like Varun, who's an expert when it comes to sound mixing, editing and design. Easily the best studio I've been to in Bangalore. Go check it out for yourself if you'd like to give it a try. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you in our next episode. I was going to say next week, but probably I'll be releasing an episode the week after. So I'll see you on the next episode.